All right, welcome back into another episode of Politics, as usual as they can be. It's never too regular, but I'm excited about this episode. First of all, mainly because we finally got an opportunity to get everybody together, and it's a special event. It's like a family reunion.
First time,
if you will. So it's a, if you will, it's a relaunch, and it's also an opportunity for us to, keep things the way we always do. But I'm your moderator / host here, Matt Whitener, joined to my immediate right by the good brother Demarco Davidson.
Hey, good evening or good afternoon or good morning whenever you're watching this. It's an honor to be here and in person. And we got two special guests. I mean, it's so great to have our brother Chris with us as well. Chris.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I missed a few episodes and I'm sorry.
Wasn't the same without you, brother.
Yeah, but know what though? I'm back for the best one.
Yes.
I mean, no disrespect to anybody else.
Too late.
I'm excited that Chris decided to rejoin his own show. I'm really excited about that. It just adds so much to it. But I don't want to go too long without recognizing our guest for the day here. Representing the Missouri State Senate, 14th District, out of University City. I'll say it again, University City. Good brother, Senator Brian Williams. Thank you for making time for us, sir.
Yo, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. And I'm glad to be the first episode in person.
Yeah, man.
Like,
hey,
that's dope.
We like to save special events for special occasions, man. And we're here, and you're here for an awesome reason too. And it's something that I think can only be done justice through this forum. But we'll get along to that here in a second. But first of all, man, thank you for making the time and being able to join us here today. There's a lot of things that we want to get into, both from current events, but also just get your perspective on that impact both the Missouri political scene, the St. Louis political scene, and just where we're going to be going with that. So first of all, I want to say this, man, because the gravity, I forgot this, but the gravity of it kind of hit me. The first African-American male elected to Missouri Senate in 20 years.
Yep.
20 years.
That's wild. It says so much.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, man, I never really even thought about it until when I was running. And like one of these guys that was like volunteering on the campaign was like looking through the website. It's like, yo, man, there's no black men. And I'm like, I never even thought about that. But, I'll tell you this, man, it's been so many just brothers that paved the way. And I think, for me, my success has come by knowing that history. I don't know how many people know that Chris Carter was a state representative. And for me, he was like one of those first brothers that like put on for like, young brothers, black brothers being involved in politics and taking leadership roles. So, I don't want that to fall, to the wayside, that really it was brothers like him that kind of really paved the way for me, that became interested and I had a roadmap because of them guys. And, I was just fortunate, between just, God and timing that I got to the Missouri Senate.
Thank you. Well, Chris, man, I mean, hey, that's your legacy, right? You don't like to. Chris doesn't like to look at it that way. Chris likes to play himself down, and we don't let him do it.
No, never.
No, that's the whole thing. That's the beautiful thing about it. We talked about this in the past, though, about what it meant to have people, see politics and see politicians that are younger, and then be able to embody themselves. I talk about it in sports all the time about why it's important for people to have examples that look like them in a very literal sense. And I think that is, a dope thing to be able to have that and to have that, connection like that. So,
I mean, and to think about 20 years. I mean, shots out and much respect to all of the black women who were state senators, but to not have a black man from St. Louis, not from Kansas City, not from Columbia, Springfield, or anywhere else where there are African Americans to represent on, like, just for the state as well. It's incredible that it's been that long, way too long. Again, shouts out to the black women who held it down and continue to hold it down. But it says something that's significant, that's important, that's somebody who's young, also from Hazelwood Central. Got to throw that in there real fast. Also a Noop, can't forget that. But I remember, when Brian was running, because I was running around the same time, and I remember us being at the church in U City, and how some of our answers were similar, and how there was a group of young people, and I never forget how the group of young people were gravitating towards everything that I shared. But when Brian was speaking, like, the kids were like attentive. When Brian was speaking, the kids was like, I'm listening. I am there. I am in tune. So I saw that. I was like, man, like, at first I was like, man, Brian going to get some heavy hitters. But by the time you got to the one that was at 24-1, I was like, oh, Brian winning. Brian is going to win this. And he was like, he probably is one of the most polished candidates that I've seen in my short history of politics, but seriously, one of the most polished candidates, man. So share a little bit, man, but like just your road and understanding of how you even got to this part and even see yourself, man, and what, and maybe what's even in store for next.
Yeah, well, man, I appreciate that. And again, I think like the history of stuff's just so cool. One thing for folks that know me know that like I was always one of those people that was, I'm gonna communicate. I'm always gonna be somebody that's the same person. I'm not gonna change. I'm not gonna be that person that when you say, oh, they're gonna Brian, I know I can talk to Brian and work that out. And so that played a big role really when I ran, that even if it wasn't people that were supporting me, they knew that they didn't have many reasons to be against me.
Right.
And I think that worked in my favor. But I think other people that just kind of know the process and understand, like I can tell you right now, the representative probably like, yeah, he gonna probably win. It's just little things that you can kind of see that people are doing. But I think also, man, I take it back to so many different parts of my life. My grandmother, who was the first Black woman to get an international appointment as an auto worker. She worked at Chrysler. I was the first person in my family to go to college. But it was so many inspirational people that just worked hard. They got up every single day and they just did what they needed to do. So that was my foundation. And then the other side of it too was that, I was privy to kind of see politics, but also I understood, just as somebody that grew up here, what the problems were. And I think sometimes what happened, and one thing I've been very intentional about as an elected official, is not pretending like those issues don't exist. Like you can't really throw no political buzzword at me and I'm like, man, that ain't real. Like, Chris grew up in North St. Louis, the 27th Ward, that they seeing some real issues up there.
Yep. And
that's night and day from, maybe what somebody in Tyra Grove talking about or Central West End. It doesn't matter. So, just really staying plugged in with the community and just, being just true to those ideals have been my, my success points. I think the other part is, going to college and pledging a fraternity. And it's one thing that I think about all the time. I think about this quote called "We the Willing." And "We the Willing" was always powerful to me because it always just talked about just being led by the unknown, doing the impossible for the ungrateful. You've done so much for so long with so little that you're now capable of doing anything with nothing. And that really just kind of how I just approach every part of my life, including my campaign when I ran.
So let me ask you this, because I know for years you have did a ton of community organizing. You worked for Lacey Clay, for the congressman for a long time. You did a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't even know about.
Yeah.
And so what was that one thing? Because it's always one thing. What was the one thing that pushed you to actually file for office and to run?
Well, that's a great question, but I'm gonna go back a little bit. So the way I got that job, I was an intern. Like I didn't even know the congressman. Yeah, I didn't even know him. Didn't know anything about him. Didn't have nobody in my family that was in politics or anything. And I did an internship because I had a fraternity brother who knew Allison Singfield.
Okay.
Yeah. And rest in peace, Allison. She was such a beautiful person, and knew Allison and introduced me to Allison. And when I was in last year, my master's program, I did an internship and ended up getting a job. Didn't even know what my pay was going to be. Didn't even know any of that. And I just knew that I wanted to do some stuff to make a difference. And then just kind of navigated that process. But I'll say the reason I decided to run was because, I had a bunch of ideas. The reality of it was that I knew that my ideas and how I viewed the world really could only go so far if my name wasn't on the door.
Right.
So, and I think that I had an opportunity to professionally, personally, and socially understand that, people are going to do what they want to do. And it doesn't really matter how you view it. It doesn't really matter what you think. But if you're a part of that, the consequences and the views and the successes that all, that all fall on you. So, I just wanted to kind of pay my own way. That's always been who I was and always who I am. So, I decided to run. And, I think the other part of it, I remember complaining to my grandmother. And I'm like, man, this, and this, and this, and this, just complaining, saying, politics, this, government, this. And she looked at me and she said, why don't you do something about it? Like, what? I wasn't expecting that. I thought she was just going to, comfort me, be like, yeah, you right. The hell with Trump.
Right.
But she was like, why don't you do something about it? And I remember getting this quote by Theodore Roosevelt called "The Man in the Arena." And the man in the arena basically just talked about how it's so easy to criticize people from the sideline. It's real easy to criticize Representative Carter or Alderman Carter from the sideline when you're not in the game. It's so easy for all of us to really criticize people that are doing stuff that we don't do. And that's just the reality of it. So I knew if I thought I was so good at stuff, if I thought I had so many ideas, then get in the game and do something. But also I was very thoughtful to the timing. It was an open seat that was coming up. I grew up in Ferguson, so I grew up in North County. Understood the district. I felt like that it was, a good opportunity. I quit my job to do it. So it wasn't like it was nobody put me up to it. I quit my job. So if I didn't win, I was going to have to figure something out anyway. So that's one thing I want people to know is like, if you want to do something, you got to take real risk. Yeah. And, these folks that run for office, they taking real risk. And the process is not easy. 3 of us up here have done it and know, firsthand, like you have to, like, it's more than a notion. So
you definitely have to have a different mindset to win. I mean, to run, but to win is, it's killer.
But to run the right way, and one thing I'll say, I ran the right way. I ran the way that I believed that I should run. I ran on how I wanted my brand to be. I didn't make my campaign about nobody else but Brian Williams.
Smart.
I didn't make my campaign about anybody else. And I think even today as Senator Williams, there's nobody that can say that I use anybody else's platform to do what I need to do. I carry my own weight. And I'm proud of that.
It's interesting to me that you talk about the way to run, because I think that more so than at any other point in my life, that gets lost in the haze now. There's so many different people that are running and doing so many different things and saying, it's hard for somebody to understand what's real and what's not and things like that. So when you look across the landscape and you look at all the different things that are happening right now in the political spectrum, what's been your experience in dealing with that now on the other side so far, and kind of looking back and just seeing how it's evolved even during the time that you've been in office?
Well, we're on the podcast and we're just going to keep it 100. I was cool before I ran for office. Yeah. I was a part of a fraternity. I already had friends. I already had stuff going on. And, so running for office didn't even change me. It didn't change me. It changed me in a way that you would never really expect it to. Like, I became more thoughtful. I became a lot more humble. I became, I realized that I'm on people time now. I'm not on Brian's time. Right. And when I tell you it's rewarding, but it's also extremely frustrating, because it's days where you just want to hang out with the noobs and that ain't up to you. You on people's time. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that, it's a very, very challenging job. Yeah. And, I spend 4 to 5 days a week in Jefferson City. So I'm not at home. I come home on the weekends and I have to turn around and come right back. And I think people really don't understand like how much that really infringe on your life, and God forbid you have a wife or children or whatever the case may be. It was a little easy for me because I'm not married and I don't have any kids, but it's still hard. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, it's a real challenging experience. But again, when I ran, I knew up front that, who I was, who I wanted to be, what type of leader I wanted to be. The reason I ran is because of that. And that's really what I've been doing the entire time. In terms of people that run, you can't really control what people do and what they say. But what I will say is that getting out there and continuing to be divisive, put false narratives out there, as we stated, in our space, be a hater. Like, it's no reason why you should be trying to pull down another person. When I see black people, when I see black leaders, when I see any leader, I'm trying to figure out how do we coexist. Right. And I think, we've gotten to a place now where people think leadership is putting one leader down in order to be a leader. And you can be a leader and it be other leaders. Like we did that in our fraternity. Like, you know, in the chapter, you had everybody was a leader.
Well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that the nature of what American politics is supposed to be? Shared leadership,
Supposed to be.
People agreeing on things, people not agreeing on things, but understanding the way to do both. It seems like that's gotten a little bit lost in the mixes here. But you're talking about that. It makes me wonder about a thing that I wonder literally every politician right now. Chris did an awesome job a couple of episodes ago talking about what this looks like.
Right.
What does it mean to work across the aisle right now in politics? You know, in Missouri,
it's
right
extremely different now.
And in Missouri in 2020 and 2021,
you don't have a choice
Right.
if you want to get anything done. Like, you know, what people don't understand is like going in and just looking at things and on one side and you not the majority. That's not how it worked. So, you know, for me, I didn't see the point. You know, I remember the day I decided to run. So one of my opponents had like a town hall, and I'm not going to disclose no names, but they had a town hall. And I said, I brought my mom, I brought my grandmother, and I brought my aunt, my mom's youngest sister. And I don't even know, were you there, Rob? Rob came, and I said, look, if this person make the case, and you think this person has made a case that they should, you know, stay, you know, be able to run for the seat, then I'll just fall back. But I want y'all to see, I want to see if y'all see what I see.
Right.
Mhm.
And they looked at me and they was like, go get your seat. And basically I listened to so many leaders come back and they say, oh, well, we can't work with the other side. Therefore, y'all need to suffer. But it's people in our community that get up every single day and work with people they don't like. And they still got to do their job at a high level, or guess what? They get fired. They get fired. Like you'll lose your job. Like if you go into your job and, you know, the guy in the office next to you, the cubicle, whatever you do, and you go and start fighting with him, somebody's getting fired.
Yeah.
Somebody's getting
Yeah.
fired. So why is politics any different? Like you got to be, you know, being professional is the bottom line for me. And I think that, you know, what I was able to do with this police reform bill was a testament to not even just about working across the aisle, but just really setting a standard. Like, yeah, we're going to be professional and we're going to figure out how to work through this.
Yeah. And know what? I'm glad that you brought that up because, you know, that was one of the biggest topics that we wanted to talk about. But let's just dive into it. SB 60. How can you get that, or how did you get this passed with the current climate in Missouri, in the Senate and in the House? Because they have overwhelming a majority. So you had to have some sort of decency about yourself, or you had to be taking care of business to be able to get this done now in this climate, just nationally, but locally. You know what I'm saying? Just, I mean, so talk a little bit about the bill and we'll hammer out a few questions.
Yeah, for sure. So Senate Bill 60, basically what ended up happening, it started off as one way and it ended a completely different way. But it ended up a completely different way for the better. Like the bill ended up being way better than I even expected it to be. So, you know, clearly it goes through the process and we benefited from the process. But the crazy part about it was I remember when I started working on it, and keep in mind, when I took on this issue, I wasn't running for anything. Like I'm in the middle of my term. So I'm thinking to myself, like, look, I'm the only black man here. You know, we know what happened to George Floyd. We know what happened to Michael Brown. We know what happened to Breonna Taylor. And guess what? The only thing I identified with them was that the fact that they could have easily been me.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They could have easily been me. I could take off that lapel pin and be a victim.
Yep.
And I knew instantly I would look back on my time there and say, I had an opportunity to at least fight for something, and I did it. And I had people around me like, man, that's going to be a tough issue. You're not going to be able to get that done. Man, you appealing to these people and, you know, these groups of folks like you. And man, you really didn't got into this little space. I don't think you really want to mess with that because it's going to be kind of controversial. And I mean, just all kinds of stuff. You know how I go, Chris.
And
everybody
some of your
telling
own people will even tell you that too.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
And I was like, man, you know, it is what it is. I think that at this time, at this moment, I'm the person I think could get this done.
Yeah.
And I was willing to do the work. So we spent a year. We went all over the state, Springfield, Columbia, Cape Girardeau, Jefferson City, Kansas City, clearly here in St. Louis where we are. And we just talked to law enforcement. We talked to activists. I talked to fellow elected officials, Rasheen Aldridge, and different folks. And I knew really, and what people don't understand is like running for office and getting elected, like that. Getting elected only buy you time until people really realize if you're a leader or you're real anyway. Yeah. So it's not like a situation where you get elected and you just get these magical powers and you become this leader. Like, you know, I already understood it from just like being in circles with distinguished people, you know, some of the smartest people in the world. I mean, like we had chapter meetings with some of the brightest people in the world. And I knew in order for that to work, I had to create a coalition. And what does that coalition look like? Not a room full of people that think like me. It got to be a room full of people who view the world different, but they all contribute in some type of way to make this work. So, man, we started talking to the cops. It was days where I talked to law enforcement and I just walked out like, man, this ain't gonna work. There was days I talked to activists and I walked out, I'm like, man, this ain't gonna work. And then it was days where I just felt like, you know, it was just such a draining situation. And the crazy part about it was that instead of going further like I did, I could have just said, you know what? I didn't got a platform out there that I tried. That was already enough for me to get elected. That was already enough for me to get reelected right there, that somebody saw me on TV talking about something that they care about. But that wasn't enough for me. I was like, I want to get this done because at the end of the day, I don't care about the credit. I want to, this needs to be done. That's what we're here for. So, man, we started working through it for a year. I ended up going to a colleague of mine named Tony Lukemeyer. Now, Tony was an interesting guy because, you know, full disclosure, he's a Republican, but I supported his Democratic opponent. He ran against a guy named Martin Rucker. And if y'all know, Martin Rucker was a Mizzou grad.
This was
Junior. Okay. Yeah. You knew the dad. Yeah. So Junior was a football player, played in the NFL, played for the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, y'all know.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, probably arguably one of the best tight ends to come out of Mizzou.
Yeah.
And he lost to this guy, right? And I'm like excited about him. I'm like, man, this brother gonna get in. And I thought he was gonna win. And it was really close, but he ended up losing. And Tony comes in, and like Tony's this Republican law and order type guy. And we kind of got to know each other. Our offices was like next to each other. So I came to him one day and I said, hey, man, you know, I've been working on this police reform stuff, and you know, I need you to take my bill up in your committee. And he says, okay. He says, so what does the bill do? And I started telling him what the bill did, and you can see him just kind of straightening himself in his chair, like as I started. Oh man, he was like, nah, not today, but no, he was in a tight spot because he was like, you know what? Like I truly and genuinely like respect you. And I want to see you get a victory, but I don't know how we do this. Like I can't vote for it. So how am I gonna, like, this is not gonna go anywhere. So I'm like, well, look, man, think about it. We get back to him. I go to law enforcement. I say, hey, look, you know, we've been working on this for a year. Y'all say y'all want to help me. Go to Tony, ask him to take the bill up. So they go to Tony. He's still like not sure. Now he's the chair of the Judiciary Committee. So he's the kingmaker in this style. He the big dog. And I go to him again, and he called me one night. He says, look, we're going to take up your bill. I mean, and the thing that Democrats got to understand now, let me tell you the crazy part. I learned so much through this process because it's another world of the process that we don't even see. You know, like it's stuff because it's not even relevant to us. Like passing a bill is not relevant to a Democrat in a supermajority Republican legislature. It doesn't even matter. Like, you don't have to know how it works because it's not going to happen. So I'm learning this process, and you know, my staff, we like, whoa, so this is how this go down. Like, this is crazy. So he says, look, I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna call the pro tem. I'm gonna tell them to bring your bill up the second week of session, so we can start working on it and have time, because we can't let this come up at the end of the session. And that's what happens to Democrat stuff. It just pop up because they know it's gonna die. So he said, we're gonna bring it up. We're gonna start filling it out there. So we felt it out. People had reservations. You know, it came out of committee. Now everybody's like I'm a star now, because they're like, wait a minute, you just got a bill out of committee the second week of session, and that could have been enough. I could have just stopped there and said, I'm the only Democrat to get a controversial bill out of a committee. Like, that's the standard. And I'm like, no, we got to keep going. So
the bar was low.
Oh, for sure.
And it was about saying that I'm going to pick it up some.
Yeah. So I'm like, we got to keep going. So I go to him and he says, okay, this is what I can live with. He had a bill, and his bill basically now, and I want to kind of, it's going to be a caveat that I'll go back to after this, but he had a bill that basically did one thing. It lifted the residency requirement for police officers in Kansas City. That was it. And I'm like, okay. So special session last year, there were 3 people that voted against lifting the residency requirement for St. Louis. It was 3. The 3 black senators from St. Louis. It was me, Senator Nasheed, and Senator May. Just us 3, right? That voted against it. So I'm on record voting against lifting residency requirements. Now, my primary reason for doing it, and I represent St. Louis County where they don't even have a residency requirement. Right. The reason I did it was because it was going on the ballot. And I said, I think voters should have an opportunity to decide what they want to do with their police department. So, I voted against it. So this time around, I'm like, wait a minute. There's only 3 people that voted against it for St. Louis. This can't be no big deal anyway. And honestly, they did it for St. Louis. I think these reforms and protecting Black lives is way more important than telling a cop where he can live in Kansas City. That's my opinion about it.
How did Kansas City senators feel about that?
No, they didn't like it, but at the same time, what they had to understand, and this is what I told them, it was going to happen anyway.
Yeah,
it was going to happen anyway. So it wasn't like if they want it to happen, it's going to happen. That's what people don't understand. Like being up there as a Democrat is kind of like it's really like being online. It's like you either gonna come tonight and you know what's gonna happen, or you can stay at home. But either way it go, whatever we need, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen.
So let me ask you about that though, because I think that I think that when you talk about that, when you're in a situation where there's a super majority and there's just so many things that are happening that you got to work through, that's got to be a tightrope to realize when you're gonna be like, it ain't worth it, or this is the moment that I'm going to walk out a little further on this rope and see how far I can get. Like, what is that? Is there just the climate's got to be right to make that call? Or is it a thing where you're like, no, I see the logic of what we're going to do here, and I'm willing to risk that in this.
You got to be serious, and you got to come in a situation and say, like any real leader that you ever respected, like if you go back and check the archives on how people viewed Barack Obama when he was in the Illinois legislature, I guarantee you was a ton of people that didn't like him. Yep. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you there was a ton of people who didn't like him or just didn't like the way he did stuff. But guess what? He was getting stuff done. For me, I already knew that it was going to be people like I had groups calling like, well, we don't like this Kansas City residency stuff. Why don't you let your bill come out by itself? And I said, okay. I didn't say that to them at the time, but I'm gonna tell y'all where my thought process was with this, because I thought it through already. We already knew what we was going to do. In a majority Republican legislature, how do you get your priorities through? You know how you get them through? By making sure that your priorities, if something happened to your priorities, something is happening to theirs.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I went to Tony and I said, how about we do this? Now, I don't want no amendments. I want my name on it. Let's roll our bills together in what's called a Senate committee sub, vote it out of committee. If your bill die, my bill die. If my bill die, your bill die.
Smart.
That's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And all we got to do is work together to keep it clean.
Yeah.
So we spent the entire session just keeping both of our parties from messing the bill up.
How did you keep it clean?
Now
that's tough.
Now
because you opening up so many.
Oh yeah, it was a vehicle
so
for everything.
Much.
Yeah.
And it was a vehicle for everything. The way we kept it clean was, so with the Republicans, it's 2 groups. You got the Republicans and you got the conservative caucus. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you got to square up with both of them. So if I met with the Republicans, they're like, all right, cool. You settled up with the regular Republicans. We the conservative caucus. So let me tell you what our issues are. We don't like the protests. How about we add some language that say if a protester get in the middle of the street, they can get a felony. Or if they in the middle of the street and they blocking your vehicle, you can run them over. You can legally run them over. Yeah. And I remember my chief of staff, Rob, sitting there, and I'm just looking at him, and I'm like, no. and they're like, well, we figured that if you get what you want and we put what we want on here, everybody's happy. I'm like, that's defeating the entire purpose of what I'm trying to do. He's like, so this can't work? I'm like, no, it can't work. And what Republicans are not used to is like somebody saying straight up no.
Yep.
And I know for a fact I was one of those few people who ever been there who was not that, clearly I wanted to get it done, but I knew that at the end of the day, my bill had something that was attached to it that law enforcement wanted, that Republicans can't vote against. And if I continue to stay diligent through this, it's going to work itself through the process.
Right.
So that's kind of how we did it, man. And like I said, it was hard because they tried. And the thing about it was that the relationships is what really came in. So like my first year in the Senate, I didn't even really spend no time, and Chris know how this worked. Like I sat on the side, I just learned the rules and procedures. I was in my rule book all the time. I go to, people's offices and just talk to them about their districts. And by the time I got to really something that I cared about, I knew what everybody in the Senate cared about.
Exactly.
I knew what their priorities were.
Mm-hmm.
And there was plenty of cats who had stuff that did not impact St. Louis.
Yeah.
And all I was doing was collecting my chips. Like it was like somebody had come to me, Senator Williams, could you support, something dealing with farming or agriculture? It has nothing to do with St. Louis. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I got you. Nobody cares. It's not a big deal to me. It's not against my morals and my values. It's just something you care about. And I cashed in those chips. So when I had this big ask, it was so many people like, man, he needed me. I needed him for this, and he was there for this. And those relationships built. And I can tell you by the middle of that process, Senator Luke DeMeyer, who I was working with, you can tell he had been in the trenches with us so much to where he wanted it for us. Mm-hmm. He was like, man, I know what you put into this. Like, we're going to get this bill done. And the thing about Republicans, what people don't understand, if you're a Democrat and you in St. Louis and they in some other part of the state, they really looking at it like, we believe you're a leader. We'd rather make sure don't no other Democrat come up here and replace you. We like what you're doing. Yep. So like, it was, I guarantee you, it was plenty of people that's like, we like Obama. So we're going to make sure we protect Obama enough to keep somebody that we don't know from coming in here. Right?
Yeah.
The vehicle. Yeah. You talk about some of the things. Go ahead, DeMarco. I'm sorry.
You good. So Senator Williams, first off, I hope the governor definitely signs the bill. I hope it passes.
The governor gonna sign it. It's gonna pass.
Right.
We're working on the date now, actually, and I'll talk about that at the end.
That's what's up. So how do you deal or handle the criticism from people who might be in your district, who might feel like, oh, the bill doesn't have enough teeth, meaning that, okay, it protects people from a certain style of police brutality, but not like, even, for example, you brought up Mike Brown and Breonna Taylor, who did not die from being choked or anything in the capacity. So how do you deal with the criticism again, while also from people who might be in your district, but also still making sure that the process is not interrupted, and to begin the process of even keeping track of, I think that's one part about the bill that makes me excited, that to start having a database of keeping track of the excessive force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's powerful. I tell you what, I mean, I'm still fearless like I was when I ran. Like, if you don't want to reelect me or promote me for doing my job, then hey, it is what it is. I mean, you'll never, if somebody could look you in your eye and say, you're one of the hardest working people for our community and we don't think you're doing enough, then you're never going to be with me. You're never going to be with me.
You'll give them the advice your grandma gave you. Do something about it, baby. Do something.
And the thing about it is, what I tell a lot of people, man, as somebody who ran for office, it was hard. It was up there with one of the hardest things I've ever done. And it's so easy, man. It's so easy. Like when I see Chris, like Chris has been through way more politically than I have. I mean, he's held multiple offices. Like, he's put in that work. And like that level, when you see somebody, that level of respect, and I think that's what people don't understand. It's just like anything. It's like sports. Like when you see LeBron James, it's like whether you like him or not, it's like you can't deny. Like, numbers don't lie. And I've been in office for a little over 2 years, and at the end of the day, I'm gonna be standing with the governor in Ferguson, Missouri, with a bill with my name on it that did something for people. Period.
Yeah.
And nobody can take that from me. Mm-hmm. When you win a championship, when LeBron won that championship, nobody could take that away from him. Like at the end of the day, nobody could take those things away from you. And I think as politicians, we get so tied up into like trying to appeal to one base of people, and we not doing our job.
Right.
And if you, like I said, man, if one perspective is going to keep you from doing your job, then you shouldn't be there anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a powerful statement. I mean, and it's a bill that when you look at it, there's a lot of different things into it, you know, that it's not just, you know, a lot of times I think people see bills or see things that get put in the floor about politics and they just say, well, that just means that. And there's nothing else in it at all. There's levels. There's levels to this thing, basically.
Sure.
You know,
Absolutely.
so I wanted to kind of talk through a few of those things with you just to kind of have a little bit more understanding to give people a few, you know, some of the teeth that's in there. So I'm just going to kind of grab the highlights. I'll do the Sports Center version of it here. And Chris, if you got something to add in there, DeMarco, if you got something to add in there with the teeth, let's jump in it. But
I can help out a little bit.
I think I hope so. But we want for you to color. We want to make the lines and you color inside of it at that point. Right. So you know, one of the highlights in it, you know, it prohibits law enforcement from using respiratory chokeholds unless deadly force is authorized.
Right.
And I think that that's really like the main, like if you looked at like a subtitle, at least that's what people are going to see. So talk through a little bit of that and like what it was that made that be a piece that you were, you know, made be such a critical part of it.
Yeah, that was a very symbolic piece because, you know, if you think about what happened to folks, you know, just being choked. And the thing was, when I talked to law enforcement, they're like, well, we don't train on it. Well, that's cool. So if we ban it, then it shouldn't be a problem, right? And you notice, I mean, at first there was some pushback like, well, why we got to ban it? Well, if y'all don't train on it and people aren't doing it, then it should be no problem with banning it. So what that does right now, if you put somebody in the chokehold, that already classifies you as in a category to be charged with a crime. Because if it's not banned and there's no statute in place that say you can't choke people, you can say, well, there's nothing in statute or no precedent that say it's not illegal. You're just not supposed to do it. So now you got to go through this unprecedented scope on determining what type of crime this person committed. You know, and that's where a murder can go to an involuntary manslaughter or a first degree can go to a second degree. Right now, we know in the state of Missouri, you're not supposed to be choking people. So if somebody get choked out and they lose air and they can't breathe and they somehow die or become severely injured, that was wrong.
Yeah. And was that a piece that, you know, in the wake of the George Floyd situation and where it was at, is that something that had to have a direct parallel in seeing that loophole in Missouri's law, I would imagine?
No, that was something as a black man that said, no, we're going to let y'all know that y'all can't choke people.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Period. And that was just the point of it. And, you know, and then we went deeper and, you know, y'all keep going and I'll talk about it.
No, yeah, you about to go a place right there. I wanted to go there with you.
You know, we went deeper and I mean, look at what's, you know, we went further and look what's happening downtown at the Justice Center. Look what's happening at the workhouse right now. If a correctional facility officer or a police officer engages with anybody in any level of misconduct, not just sexually, if you got people fighting each other, if you got folks running some type of, system in the prison where people got to be coerced into doing stuff that they don't want to do. Now you would be charged with a Class E felony. And that's going to help so many people we know, relatives and friends of relatives that are locked up right now that are being coerced into doing stuff. And even with police officers, you know, somebody brought a story to us about when she was in college. And she said, you know, I remember when I was in college, I was drinking too much. I parked my car on the Taco Bell lot and a cop came and knocked on the window. It was like, you okay? It's like, well, you know, I'm okay. I'm sleeping because I've been drinking. And he basically said, well, you give me your number and go on a date with me. I won't give you a DUI. And she went on a date. Nothing happened. But the point is that was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Who doing it like this?
Yeah. He was a campus police officer said, you know, and she went on a date with him, one date, and that was it. But he will be charged with a Class E felony under this bill.
That's crazy, man.
But think about how far to the left that could have went.
That's somebody's daughter in college, somebody's son in college.
That's crazy.
You know, that could be impacted by that. And then another thing that the bill did, we had a use of force database. Now we can keep track of situations where high or excessive force has been used. They identify the situation, the agency, the officer involved, pretty much all the details. So now we know that, and that's going to be on a public database. And when you go and pursue a job as a police officer today under this bill, if you leave Jennings and go to Hazelwood or Ferguson, now Chief Armstrong in Ferguson, he can disclose. So if I'm somebody leave my department, I can go over to Chris and say, hey man, he got an investigation going. We didn't conclude it, but this is what it was about. So you might want to use your discretion on whether or not you hire this guy. Right. And now I have immunity from Jeff Rorter and the Police Officers Association coming to sue me for disclosing details of this investigation because this person departed the agency before we concluded the investigation.
Now, Senator, I got to ask you about that. And I know, Marco, I know you're going to have, I wanted to get this in before you got it in. I can only imagine the heat that would have come down from the police officers union and whatnot when they saw that. That's one of those things where you look at what happens. You're just like, you undercut a lot of what they were using to take that privilege and to just basically give people that immunity. And it brings it back around to me, the things that you're saying about, where police officers work at and who can work where and who's eligible to do that. Because, let's expand it. What stops somebody from out in Rockwood who has something saying, I'm just going to go work in St. Louis City now and be in a place where they have a much different view on the people that are in that space, and you don't know what they did in Rockwood. They couldn't previously speak to that. You
couldn't disclose that. So what it does is keep bad officers from department hopping. And y'all all know that's what they go from different police departments and all over the region and the state. And then it also has what's called a Ratback Program. So it now extended, and this was something that we work with the Highway Patrol on, is now if somebody applies for a law enforcement job, not only do they do the state, but a federal background check. So it's 30 days that they have to do this background check and make sure that this person didn't have any type of incidents or anything that happened prior to their hiring. So now that's another layer of vetting that they're doing for these officers. And then we moved on into something that's more criminal justice reform, which I think is very, very powerful. We had another bill that now I already hit my quota on bills that can come out of committee. My one bill, they're like, all right, man, you got a big bill. This is enough. And I guarantee you, there's probably people on both sides. Like, you went in too much. This is enough. Enough is enough. So I had another bill that I wanted. And keep in mind, if you look at my record, I only file bills that I think I can pass. So I don't just file stuff just to file it. So everything I filed, I want to pass. I'll try to, at least.
You competitive? Anybody ever said you're competitive?
I just don't file a bunch of bills. People come to me all the time with stuff, and I'm like, man, that's just not my issue. I'm not going to focus on that. So, what's the point of me doing that? And I know it's a job for you too, but I don't see a point of me filing a bill that I can't even explain to people why I filed it. So I just don't do it. So anyway, I filed this bill. It's clean slate. It deals with expungement. Now, this bill is just as important to me as police reform. So we start working through the process. The bill gets out the Senate. Now, keep in mind, relationships matter. So I go to Caleb Rowden, the majority floor leader in the Senate. Now, what the majority floor leader does...
He's also a Republican, correct?
He's Republican. Anybody that matter up there is a Republican.
Right. So I did a chart for the Missouri state senators. And I looked at who's on committees, who the chairs, who the vice chairs. There's only one committee that has a chair as a Democrat.
Progress and development.
Only one.
Yep, I'm the vice chair.
Out of all
the chair, Jill. Jill was the most senior. So when
out of all of the committees in the state of Missouri are led by a Republican chair and vice chair.
For sure. Wow. If you go look, if you got time, look up the House. You see.
What about in the House? The House, you got one, right?
Yeah, you got Representative Prouty over Urban Affairs. So anyway, now I got to go talk to Caleb. I'm like, hey, look, man, I need your help. He's like, okay. Now, keep in mind, now he's in control of the entire calendar for every bill that's filed in the Senate. So now he got to figure out how to get this Democrat controversial bill on the calendar and done at some point. And let me tell you what the race is. The race isn't no other bill than this controversial bill that say you can run over people if they protesting. You could charge people with a felony for blocking the streets. And I need my bill to get out before this one do.
Right.
And the reason why is because I'm against it.
Right.
So if I get out there and I block this bill, guess what they're gonna do to my block?
Yeah.
So I go to Caleb and I'm like, hey,
Tumbo.
they go, oh, it's done. They knock it to the other side of the court. So I go to Caleb and I'm like, and this is where the relationships matter, where you gotta get to know people, and it can't always just be black and white.
Yep.
So I go to Caleb and I said, look, man, I need a favor. I need my bill to come up, and I need you. We got to get it out the Senate before this bill. And believe it or not, man, every Republican don't like every Republican.
No,
and that's another thing that
right.
that's
what
what
we've
people
been-
don't understand.
Yeah.
So he looked at me he's like, okay, now he don't want to promise me, but he says, okay. He just, and you could tell he's looking like, I don't know how I'm gonna figure this out, but I'm gonna do it for you.
You just cost him
So-
a couple hours of sleep.
Oh, I just cost him
Yeah.
more than enough.
Yeah.
Because guess what? I need the bill to come up early.
Yep.
Because I got it. Look, it still got to go through the House. Like it still got to go
Yeah.
through an entire different process and then come back to us. Like it ain't enough days in a year. So Caleb I get the bill up and we get it out, and I get the bill out. Literally, what, Rob, like a couple hours before the other bill came up.
Mhm.
So we get our bill out right before we go to recess at noon. We take a lunch break. My bill gets out. I'm like, thank God. That bill come up. We had to lay it over because people was just all over it. Oh man. Because I did not, because guess what? I wasn't gonna not block it. So now I'm like, man, I can't not block it. So my bill gets out. As soon as that bill come up, I'm like, man, this bill horrible. I'm blocking it. I'm filibustering, doing all kinds of stuff. And they like, dang, we can't do nothing to him because this bill's done.
Mm-hmm.
So my bill gets out, it goes to the House. But to get back to the point of the bill, it has expungement language in it. And basically in Missouri, last special session, the governor decided to do a special session that would make someone as young as the age of 12 years old to be charged as an adult
Mm-hmm.
and also housed with adult prisoners.
Yeah.
We raised the age back up to 18. So no one under the age of 18 can be charged as an adult or housed with adult inmates. We took the expungement law, which today, before this bill was passed, if you were charged with a nonviolent offense, felony, you would have to wait 7 years after getting off probation. So 7 years after getting off papers to be able to even be eligible for an expungement.
That's crazy.
Man, think about
Good
how much
Lord.
stuff can happen to you in 7 years.
Yeah.
7 years
That's
without
a
a
lot.
job.
Yeah.
And so we rolled that back to 3 years. We cut that more than in half. And if you have a misdemeanor, nonviolent offense, is 1 year after you get off probation, which it was 3 years before.
I like this bill. I like that.
And then we also had some more language, which was really important, which is going to benefit your local prosecutors. So for everybody that's
Mhm.
huge supporters of Kim Gardner, Wesley Bell in St. Louis County, right now we know that it's people that look like all of us that are in prison for crimes they didn't commit.
Right.
We know that.
Right. Right.
So Lamar Johnson had a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the only reason why they didn't win that case is because there was technical language that said a local prosecutor could not provide evidence from a crime that somebody committed. It would have to go under the scope of the attorney general. We put in language called the motion to vacate. And basically what the motion to vacate would do is allow Wesley Bell or Kim Gardner to provide substantial evidence to the courts that would allow that case to be reopened and ultimately get a new trial. So anybody that's been put in prison unlawfully, we can provide that information, and now we can have that evidence submitted in a new trial to determine the facts on whether or not that person committed a crime. I ain't even going through everything, but I just touched on the big parts of it. Today, when that bill goes in, that bill would have to either be signed into law or automatically go into law by August 28th, unless the governor vetoes it. He's not going to veto it because we made sure he had something he wanted in it.
Right.
Mhm.
And what they wanted was the residency. There's no language to run over protesters. There's no anti-protester language. There's no anti-Black Lives language.
Mhm.
The only thing we did to help law enforcement with that bill was lift the residency. We negotiated it to where you can't live no more than 30 miles from the Kansas City Police Department, and you can't live in Kansas. So we negotiated
which
that,
is massively important. On
they
that side
wanted,
of
they
this.
wanted, they wanted Kansas, and they wanted 60 miles. We gave them 30 miles, and you can't live outside of Missouri.
Right.
Okay.
And then we gave the sheriffs a raise, and that was something that Vernon Betts wanted.
Yeah. I was gonna say, who would be mad at this bill? I mean, I'm looking at it.
Oh,
It
nobody
touches-
mad. They happy now.
Yeah, no,
But they was-
I mean, it touches everything that has been the focus nationally and locally. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see.
and it's gonna help Black people day one, man.
Yeah.
Like this gonna happen. This gonna help so many people.
This is a victory for us.
And people ask me, so what you gonna do next? You know, I'm gonna spend next year trying to figure out how to get people out of prison, get records expunged. We gave $500,000 to Harris Stowe for them to be able to do a cadet program where young people at Harris Stowe and Lincoln University could go through the cadet program with the police department and still get their criminal justice degree. So now you can get your degree and get your certification to be a police officer. So we get more people of color in the police department, and they get their degree if they want to do something different.
Yeah.
And they don't got to pick and choose.
Can we work on unlock the vote? Like making sure people get the right to vote if they.
Oh no! So also with this bill with expungement, you get all your voting rights.
Right on.
They restore.
There it is.
Okay.
So your voting rights, once you're with the expungement law, your voting rights are restored.
Yeah. So you brought up actually, you talked about how some of the things that we view, whether this being from St. Louis or being from a metropolitan area or even being just African Americans and living our daily lives, how some things come off as common sense, but how is it when you have to work with people who view what we view as common sense as nonsense?
Well, one, go back to what your mama taught you. It ain't about what you say; it's how you say it.
Right.
So when I used to walk in the room, it was so many things that activists and different people, progressives, believed. I just knew how to say it. You know, it's like it's really, believe it or not, the devil is in the details, and a lot of people don't really realize. I can tell you right now, that bill that we passed, if I was a Republican, I wouldn't have voted for it. I'm telling you that up front. I'm like, man, I'm not voting for this.
Yeah.
But Republicans are smart in one way. They don't, if they vote for something this year, guess what they're going to do? They're going to come back next year and make it their issue. That's what they're going to do. They're going to come back next year and be like, we the party of criminal justice reform.
Yep.
And they're just going to continue to expand their umbrella. On the Democrat side, we trying to figure out how to tell people no, you ain't cool enough to sit with us. Republicans say, all right, cool. You want criminal justice reform? Cool. I voted for this bill. Come on in. We're going to make this our issue. Yep. And that's how Donald Trump got elected. Because you got so many people that have this litmus test. And at the same time, it's people that are coming here and they duping everybody. Like Donald Trump, he wasn't a Republican or Democrat. He was Donald Trump.
Right.
And to think even today, I think about what Rick Ross said. He said sometimes we gotta just like break down before we elevate. Sometimes like I'm not that type of person. I'm the type of person that my successes came like, man, he ran out in the middle of the street, got hit by a car. That looked like that hurt. I ain't gonna do that. That's me.
Right.
That's me.
But
some people like, man, he got hit by a car. That's lit.
I'm gonna run out there.
I'm about to run out there.
Because he got some likes for that.
He got some, he got some followers on IG, and the thing about it is that I didn't walk in no room and change the tone of my voice. I didn't walk in no room and take away my identity. If you look at any presser or anything I ever did, I remember the last day of session and they asked me during our press conferences we do at the end of the week. And they was like, so what does this say to the state of Missouri? I said, it say that finally in the state of Missouri that Black lives matter.
Yeah.
Period.
I said that.
Period.
I didn't say all lives. I didn't say, African Americans. No, Black lives matter today. And my Republican colleagues were in the same room and they knew that's how I felt about it. But just because I have my views and feel a certain way about something doesn't give me the right to be unprofessional with people that don't agree. And that's the bottom line. That's a life lesson to anybody and anything that you do. Anybody that you think is successful, because I can tell you, LeBron ain't brokering them deals with Fenway Sports and becoming a minority owner of Liverpool, a team where he can't even wear their apparel because he's with Nike. He's not navigating Maverick and all them guys that people don't even know, that they don't even see. Them guys are sitting in the room with billionaires, and guess what? They know they Black. Like I don't have to go in the room and say, well, you know, I'm black. Yeah, we see you
I'm
black.
y'all.
But I'm going to tell you why you need to do something for black people. And if you don't understand why you should do it for black people, then do it for me.
Right.
It was people that didn't get it. And I was like, man, hell, do it for me then.
I think that what you just put right there, correct me if I'm wrong, is the essence of
do it
being
for
a
me.
representative.
I think that
Yeah. If you don't agree with me, then if you respect me enough to either support it or stay out the way.
I think that you should be teaching courses to a lot of people that who are currently in politics.
And I have one of the most progressive records of any Democrat in this state. That's stuff record. So when I go before people, you can check my record. You ain't never heard nobody say I didn't vote for nothing crazy. I didn't have to cut a single deal to get this done. I didn't vote to privatize public education. I didn't do none of that.
Right.
I went with my own merit. And guess what? It was times where I was like, you know what? If y'all don't have enough respect for me and y'all gonna mess this process up, I was already prepared to kill my own bill.
Yeah.
I was prepared to kill my own bill. And the thing about life that people become so married to one particular outcome. And I'm never married to one particular outcome. Like I'm never too good to meet people where they are or get on that level. And that's where my success came from. Rasheen Aldridge, man, I'll tell you up front, like I got out there and I marched for Mike Brown and George Floyd, but what they was going through, Chris and I, man, all y'all, like, man, we was kids growing up in North St. Louis, North County. We was getting pulled over and messed with by the police all the time.
All the time.
Like the only difference between us and the new generation was that they had some more tools to recognize that their constitutional rights was violated. We were just glad we didn't die.
Yeah.
We was like, man, we cool. Let's just get up out of here.
I made it. Let's
When
go.
in this generation, they run to the police. We ran from them. So that's the only difference. But my point, and I don't want to be too long-winded on this, but my point is that, I went to people who cared about different things, and I made sure they was a part of it. This bill, Senate Bill 60, every black state senator in the Senate is a co-sponsor. I made sure every black senator got a priority that they wanted in that bill.
How important is that, by
Senator
the way?
May got her wraparound services for police officers, which we do provide wraparound services now for police officers for mental health evaluation.
And that's the critical incident.
Critical
stress
incident, stress management. That was
Yes.
Senator May's language. Senator Roberts had some language dealing with, I think the use of force language was his. And then I negotiated with Barbara Washington and helped her. And I told them I wasn't going to even support my own bill unless they squared up with her to where she was comfortable with the residency requirements for Kansas City.
Right.
So
The
I
senator
made sure,
for Kansas City, for those who know who Barbara Washington is.
and then in the House, I empowered people who cared about this issue, even though their name wasn't on the bill. I made sure that they knew that this couldn't have been done without them. Rasheen Aldridge was a champion on this bill for us in the House. Shamed Dogan, a Republican, was a champion on this bill in the House for us.
Shamed, come holler at us, Shamed.
And that's in my opinion, that's what it should be about. I was never like, this is a Brian Williams bill. This was a bill where everybody's co-sponsor, and the thing is that they didn't have to do nothing but exist.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do nothing but exist.
Yeah.
Because I was going to people on the other side, like they're like, well, Senator such and such want this, but this hasn't been vetted. Hey, man, I can't. If you don't do it, they're not going to support it, and I can't support it. Right. And they like,
all right.
But you gotta get people to a place. I got the Republicans to a place to where they cared about that bill more than I did.
That's what's up. So how can we then get them to a place, right? Because we're looking at some of the other legislation that's happening. We're looking at the Republicans not funding Medicaid. And to the point where even the governor was like, I'm not funding it either, not doing anything about it, take it to the courts. We also see legislation where it says local police are not allowed. They will be penalized if they enforce federal gun laws. And I literally had a conversation with a police officer yesterday during a very heated situation. And I asked him, how do you feel about that? He's like, we hate it. We hate it. That does not help us. He's like, we deal with different things in St. Louis City and Kansas City that other police departments don't deal with. And I was like, who speaks on y'all behalf? Like, who represents y'all?
And Senator Williams, before you answer that question, I wanted to highlight a little bit of the thing about the Medicaid expansion. So, earlier in the session, it was legislators voted not to fund the voter-approved Medicaid expansion. I think that that's a very important part to highlight in this. It was estimated to cost 1.9 billion overall, with roughly about 130 million of that coming from the state. So I want to kind of color in the situation we're here, where voters approved this,
Right.
and now it's being said we don't care, basically.
Yeah, for those that aren't familiar with Medicaid expansion, it was a voter-approved constitutional mandate last August that was voted into law. And what happened was the legislature decided not to fund it. Now, keep in mind, we have two jobs. Chris, when you was elected, you had one primary job, and that was to uphold the oath of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And the second was the will of the people. And those two things were not done when it came to Medicaid expansion. I was very disappointed. Not only was I proud to vote and support Medicaid expansion, but also vote to fund it. And I can tell you right now, what's happening with Medicaid expansion is the same thing that we've seen happen for many years in politics. People are letting the extreme narratives contradict how they govern and lead this state in this country. And I guarantee you, it was a lot of Republicans who knew they should have voted for it and wanted to, but was afraid that they was going to get primaried by somebody who said they wasn't extreme enough. Yep. I guarantee you. I guarantee you, some consultant called and said, "Hey, if you vote for that, it's over for you."
Identity politics. Wow. Just the definition of identity politics. And it goes to the thing you said earlier about there being two realities on that side of the aisle right now.
And keep in mind, the majority floor leader, Republican, Caleb Rowden, Lincoln Huff, Springfield, they voted to fund it. And so, and I remember Caleb getting on the floor, and I respected him a lot for that. He said, I'm gonna do something that's not popular, but at the same time, I'm doing what I believe is the right thing to do. And that go back to your point, DeMarco. When I tell you, man, I don't stay up a single day thinking about no election, man. I promise you I don't.
Yeah.
I promise you I don't, because I know what I put into it, and I know what I've contributed to the state from my space. And the people that get up every day thinking about the next election, they don't deserve to be in office. I promise you that.
But it's a lot of people that do. They vote. They vote in terms of what they may want to run for next, or somebody may want to.
It feels to me like those are the people that are standing on glass floors too.
Yeah.
Where it's that maybe what they're standing behind doesn't really have that much teeth to it. And I think that if you get to a point where you're scared of your constituents, you're not doing enough in the first place anyway.
Right.
Yeah,
you're not doing enough, and I think the other part. So it's just a bad situation. But with Medicaid expansion, we should have expanded it. Now it's going to the courts. The courts to determine whether or not I'm optimistic that the courts would do the right thing. But at the end of the day, it's our job to govern and legislate, and we should have taken care of that. And therefore, the state is potentially at risk to miss out on billions of federal dollars.
Right, but let me ask you: shouldn't the party be? That should be the number one thing now. Like what Matt just said, the people voted for this to happen, and for us not to do it, and for the legislator not to do it, that's huge. Like that should be a huge message from the party.
Hey, look. all I can tell you is this: is I know how to work hard. I know how to work through the process, and I know how to win. And if there's other people out here that don't know how to do that, shame on them. But I think Democrats, I think people got an opportunity right now. The right person could possibly take advantage of that opportunity to really expose our state for its shortcomings. And we'll see. Time will see. But that's fundamentally wrong. And if I was a Republican, I would truly do some soul searching.
Yeah. So speaking of, you talked about making sure you have the relationships, understand the process in order to win. We just because we now have Mayor Tashara Jones. We also have County Executive Sam Page. What type of relationship do you have, or are you looking to build with either one of them? And then we're talking about like bring something home. What does it look like to build a relationship, but then also to bring forth development around dealing with the Lambert Airport, which is a city-county issue, places like Kinloch, Berkeley, also understanding all the different constituents, whether it's business like Bowen, or just the local people in everyday, like you said, everyday lives, our people, our families? How do you plan on building those relationships in order to bring the wins home?
Yeah, well, this is a good moment because this is when I put on my Chris Carter hat, because Chris Carter was like one of those few people in politics that was just like flat out just saying like with the real on on the podcast or interview, like, look, this is what it is. Man, one thing that I benefit from is that I don't feel the need to like broadcast my relationships. And when I tell you, like, the people I got relationships with is, Chris, like the people I got relationships with, like somebody be like, man, I ain't never seen you with Chris Carter. And I guarantee if I call Chris Carter and say, man, I need you to show up here right now, he gonna be there. And they're like, wait a minute, I didn't know you do Chris Carter.
I ain't gonna lie.
I didn't know you do. If I call Matt right now, any of y'all, everybody in this room can say y'all had a moment with me that could justify if I needed y'all help, y'all was gonna be there.
Because it's vice versa.
Be a Daryl's birthday on the same day, like for real. Like for real,
yeah.
You got me up for feeling bad that I didn't give money or volunteer or knock some doors for you. I feel bad right now. No. Look, I'm listening to you, and I'm like, dude, I really feel bad because I didn't come out for you.
No, let me tell you what he did.
Dude.
People was coming to him, and even his dad was like, man, what you think will happen today? He's like, Dad, he gonna win.
Right. I tell people like Brian go win.
He's like, Dad, he gonna win.
Like much love and respect to the other,
and I ain't gonna go into the details, but he broke it down. He's like,
Don had to carve out. Yeah.
He was like, man, he gonna win, bro. But for real, he was that for real, and I know that. And look, and when somebody said that to me, with those relationships, like sometimes, if I got to check in with you for you to know that we straight, then that's a whole nother issue. Like I can go years without seeing y'all, and y'all all gonna know it's good. And ain't nobody ever, and this is just outside of politics, nobody ever come to y'all and say, I said something about y'all, or was talking about y'all family, or talking about who y'all are. Like I don't operate like that, and I don't think anybody should. So to your point, Demarco, Tashara and I have had a long relationship. Like we've known each other before I was even in elected office, and I'm rooting for her. And the thing about it, and even with the county executive Sam Page, if they fail, we all fail. That's what people don't understand.
Yeah,
like if they don't do well, man, that impact my family, that impact me, that impact all y'all. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what people fail to realize. Like if your personality differences are that strong that you want your entire state and region to fail, something is wrong with you. Mm-hmm. Like something is really, really wrong with you. So Tashara and I have a great relationship. I'm excited for, we've been in conversations, same thing with her and I don't have to call her every day to know if I need something that's good. Right. Sam Page and I, we're going to be working on some things around the rescue relief funding. I've challenged him to commit to North County. And I'm hoping and I'm optimistic that he'll uphold his end of the deal to where when folks are driving through North County, we got more healthcare facilities, grocery stores. We as y'all saw, I put $30 million into Wellston to redo development housing. We're trying to do that in Kinloch and Berkeley. Yeah. We're trying to also figure out how to do some stuff around all those communities around the airport. I can tell you right now, I wrote an op-ed in the American. And I remember sending it to Dr. Suggs. And I said, look, Dr. Suggs, I'm going to send this over here to you. And I just want to let you know, this ain't about no particular candidate. This is just how I feel.
I like that op-ed.
And I sent it out. But Dr. Suggs put it out. I just sent it to him, And that's another thing. When you have respect from people and you treat people with respect, they value your opinion. So I just sent it to Donald Suggs, and I didn't know what he was going to do with it for real. I don't even send stuff to like the people at the American. Like I sent it to Donald Suggs, and I'm like, what you think? And he do what he want. And I sent this to him, and it was basically called, it basically said St. Louis City and County needs to have better community relations and regional relations. And I said, whoever was running for mayor, whoever that they think that they should be the mayor, needs to have a conversation, even though county residents can't vote for them, on how they're going to improve city-county relations. Mm-hmm. If you running for mayor and you ain't never been to Kinloch,
something's wrong with that.
That's an issue. If you running for mayor, and you don't care about all those communities, because look, in my district, I got Washington Park Cemetery. If you ain't never been there, please check it out. I know people ain't volunteering to go to a cemetery, but it's a historically Black cemetery.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, if you check your lineage, you may be a descendant. And that cemetery was wiped out due to the expansion of the airport, to the extent where they were digging bodies up, just throwing them in a dumpster. And that was symbolic for me, because I said, you know what? The expansion of the airport and all these developments, they wiping out historically Black communities like Kinloch. And that is nothing but a symbol on how our communities and our race is being viewed when it comes to how we progress our region and our state. So I said, not reparations, since everybody's so damn smart, let's go to the legal terminology. I don't want no reparations, since y'all think it's too late for that. How about restitution? Y'all know what that means. You ain't got to get no charge to know what restitution means. How about y'all get restitution to the Black community by investing in Washington Park Cemetery, investing in Kinloch, Berkeley, Pine Lawn, Jennings, all these different communities that I represent, North St. Louis. I told them, I told Sam Page, I said, look, Sam, with the CARES Act money, $173 million. Now we got $517 million that's coming to St. Louis City. North St. Louis should look like Ladue.
Yeah.
And I guess what? If we don't do nothing with that money that none of us would ever see again for our lifetime, I'm gonna say it's only two things: failed leadership and a net bureaucracy. And every single elected official in this region, in this state, should be embarrassed of themselves. Period.
How would you suggest we hold these elected officials accountable?
Well, first you need to find out where the money resides.
Where the money resides.
Where the money resides. Find out where the money resides. And you know, when they say it ain't about the money, it's about the money.
It's always about the money.
So you know, it's
money.
$500 million coming to St. Louis City, 200 million coming to St. Louis County, 2 billion coming to the state. Half of that'll be here any day. We need to be really having a conversation. So whatever, you know, be the community and region you want to see. Start having those conversations.
Hey, how tough is it, while we're talking about money, real quick, and I know we probably need to wrap up.
Go for it.
How tough is it to bring money back in the budget? And I think I spoke on that before, because one of the years when I was a rep, I talked about bringing like $1 million back for something, but it was tough. It was like, man, I had to do so much.
Right.
So how tough is it for you as a senator? Because senators hold, it's different. It's different than being in the House. The senators, it's a different form of respect just with the seat. Now, some of them lose that
for sure
when they get, but you've done an awesome job in holding and even taking it a step further. So how tough is it to bring money back?
No, it's very, very difficult, especially with a state that don't think you should spend money. First, I was very lucky by building relationships. Gina Walsh, former state senator, who was the Democratic leader, the minority leader, floor leader in the Senate. When she left, she advocated for me as a freshman senator to go on the Appropriations Committee.
That's big.
So I got on the Appropriations Committee like my second year in the Senate. Like actually the end of my first year in the Senate.
That's big. That's huge.
Yeah, that's huge.
And so that was huge just to even be on that committee. And I got on it before people that had been on the budget committee for like several years in the House, and people that had been, there.
Yeah.
And
can you break down appropriations real quick too for those?
So appropriations is basically the committee that determines how the state appropriates its money, as well as it finalizes the budget for the fiscal year. And so basically any money that's coming from the state, we're responsible for it. And then we actually, we're the check and balance system for the governor as well. So in terms of appropriations, since I've been in the Senate, I've been able to get a lot of money back to St. Louis, organizations like Youth Build, and these are all ongoing appropriations. So we did $500,000 this year to Harris Stowe. We did $300,000 to Youth Build. We did $400,000 to Mission St. Louis. We did $2 million. Oh yeah, which one was it? Oh yeah, we did $2 million for community health workers in St. Louis. So all the FQACs, People's Health Center, Affinia, CARE STL. Yeah. We did $2 million just for healthcare workers in St. Louis. that work at the FQHCs.
Okay.
So that's going directly to their operating budgets. Man. Yeah, we did 400,000 for 500,000. Yes, we did $500,000 for the Father Support Center, and that was a big deal for me in honor of Halbert Sullivan, because he actually had came to see me a week before he died.
Oh wow!
And then we appropriated that money like 2 weeks after his funeral. So we put $500,000 in there for Father Support Center, and that's our second year doing that. All of this has been our second year doing that. So in my 2 years just being on the appropriations committee, we probably appropriated between $10 and $15 million.
That's big,
St.
man.
Louis region.
That's big.
It's major.
What's next, man? I want to see you in a man. I mean, man, I know it's early,
and I be forgetting stuff. That's why you got amazing staff. That's what you got, amazing staff. So like, you know, they deal with it day to day. But yeah, man. And then, you know, we've also been able to put a Black woman on the State Board of Education, Pamela Westbrooks Hodge. That was an appointment that we asked the governor to make. We just recently put Michael McMillan on Harris Stowe board.
Really?
That was an appointment I asked the governor to make. We put Adrian Bracey with the WCA, her husband Vito, Lincoln University grad. We put him on Lincoln's board. And then we also are working through the process now for Lincoln to get its land grant funding for the first time.
Great.
Really?
Great.
Yeah.
What was your question there? You said
that was it, man.
You had
you
said see what happens next. That's what you was asking.
I'm just saying, look, hey, I am.
That sounds like next. Wow.
I am highly impressed. I mean, I've been impressed, but man, I'm happy, man.
No, I'm happy too. And you know, and just remember, you know, at the end of the day, nobody gets anywhere by themselves. I mean, there's so many tools and lessons that I've learned throughout my life that contribute to my success today. But I think the best thing I can say, and you know, I'll close on this, is that I think sometimes people really think what we do is about us. And it's never about us. Like, I know my first day and my last day in Jefferson City. And when I think about, you know, people ask me, what about the next office? What are you going to run for this? When I tell you, it was so many things that people said I should have ran for before I ran for what I wanted to run for. And I look back and think, if I would have did that, I probably would have lost. But even if I had won, I probably would have been miserable. It wasn't for me. So, you know, that's saying that what God had for you is for you. And that's how I really treat my career and everything that I do.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. I actually have one more question.
Okay.
You can. Yeah. We got a little time. Is it cool with you?
Yeah, let's do it. I know we got something. We got something crazy coming. I already know.
Nothing crazy. No. So from the different conversations I've had with other senators and reps from over the years, and even Chris has mentioned this about how they sometimes some of the state elected officials or district elected officials don't feel like they get support from the other elected officials who are on a higher level over the past. So I was just wondering, has you seen a difference when it comes to Congresswoman Cori Bush? Like, how has she been? Has she had a chance to interact with the state senators and state reps yet? Or does that relationship really have an impact on how you all govern in order to get things done? Because we've heard of how Ann Wagner, for example, Congresswoman of District 2, will come and support and show up for the state reps and state senators in District 2. And I understand Congresswoman Cori Bush is just relatively fresh. That's what I was asking. So have you had a chance, or does that really make an impact at all? Well, for those who may be asking or wondering.
Well, first, remember, politics is about addition, not subtraction. So, you know, we always trying to add to what we're doing to make our region and our state better. In terms of Congresswoman Bush, she has reached out to me a few times. I have not had a chance to really focus on what she's been really focused on, but I will say this: if she don't do well, then that impact all of us. And I think at the end of the day, if you know, I was raised by my mom and my grandmother, so if I can't wake up every day with the desire and the urge to support a Black woman, whether she was a congressperson or a janitor or a teacher, then clearly I'm dismissing my upbringing. So any Black person, let alone a Black woman doing something, I'm always rooting for them.
For sure.
How are you in terms of because I know in the small seats that I held, you had I always had somebody coming to me like, man, I want to run for this seat. Can I get your support? What should I do, you know, to run for this seat? So how do you Because I know how I used to handle it.
Tell us how you handled it.
Well, no, I mean,
well, teach, Chris.
Well, no,
teach.
No. I mean, at the end of the day, I gave everybody enough time. I mean, I sat down with everybody,
including me. Man, I used to call you all the time and talk. See, look, you'd have helped so many people. You don't even remember everybody you helped.
It's like a Superman complex.
Brian gave me my first loss. I mean, not me, but my first. He taught me a for real lesson. But I know it's a lot of young folks that's reaching out to you like, man, I see you did it. You the senator, can you help me do this? Or what's some advice that you would give somebody that's that wants to get into politics young, but they just don't know, like they don't have, for me, like I was telling these guys, it was different for me because I had my uncle, I had my grandmother, I had a name, and it's good and bad that comes with that.
For sure. For sure.
But you came, I'm not gonna say you came out of nowhere because you have been around forever, and you have the knowledge of a ton of people wrapped in one. But what advice would you give someone who wants to run for a state representative or councilman, or
who wants to be the first of their name to do it?
Yeah, and I was that. What I will say is build relationships. Like, it's so important. Build relationships. Treat people the way that you want to be treated. That's so important. I mean, it goes so far. When I tell you, when I ran, like I said, even if it was people that couldn't support me, they wasn't against me.
Right.
And building those relationships and treating people right. And for young people, you gotta know a combination of what you're talking about in the history. Like, I could sit down with you and talk about Senator Paula Carter. I can talk to you about Representative Chris Carter Jr. and Sr. I could talk to you about Senator Jet Banks and Senator Bass. And the list goes on. Like, just learn a little history about your crib.
Exactly.
And that goes so far because, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm really just walking in the footsteps of people that were before me. So just don't get too lost in that. And just remember that Twitter don't vote.
Yeah, that's a fantastic place to end it at. Dude, we could spend
mic drop
all sorts of time with you, and we hope we get the opportunity to.
I'll be back for sure. I'll be back. I might give me a permanent seat on here because I kind of like that.
You need one.
If you figure out, Rob just started sweating trying to work that into your schedule.
Look, now y'all got to figure out how to do a hybrid thing in case I can't get down.
We need to go up to Chase.
We will do that. We will do that. But look, the representative, this is his first time showing up to work. Here. I know I can get on if he on.
That's why he's retired now in his mind. That's why he's here with us. But Senator Brian Williams, man, we appreciate it. We appreciate what you're doing. You appreciate you coming here to explain the things that you are doing for the people of Missouri. And, we absolutely look forward to speaking with you about this and many other things down the road.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And again, another thing for those young people, there's only one fraternity that matters, and that's
it's only one.
That's the way to end it. That's the way to end it up. That's how you started, how you ended. All right, so always, man, again, check us out on the SOLC Network at all times. All the programs we got here. We bring hotness in every avenue that you possibly can as often as we can. So check us out here again. Follow us on Instagram at SOLC Network and on Twitter at the same tag. Until next time, I'm Matt Whitener, Demarco Davidson, Chris Carter. We think next time too. We're here. Politics as usual, man. We out.